what we believe is that legal departments are being asked to go one step further. They're being asked to demonstrate value to the overall business, to morph from a cost center to a profit center. And we believe that that has opened up an opportunity in this multi-billion-dollar marketplace, and Deloitte is here to fill that gap.
Today on Law Next, the launch by Big Four professional services firm Deloitte of its legal business services practice in the United States. I'll speak with Mark Ross, principal of the practice, about what it is and what it means for the U.S. legal industry. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to Law Next, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. We'll get to today's interview in just a moment, but first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now, on to this week's interview. Mark Ross, welcome to Law Next.
Lovely to be here, Bob. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for doing it. I really appreciate it, and on fairly short notice, so I really appreciate you doing that. Well, first off, let me just, before we get to the meat of things, let me just ask how you are doing and holding up in this rather crazy time we're all in.
Well, I really appreciate you asking, Bob. I'm doing just fine. It is a crazy time. And, my thoughts and well wishes go out to all of your listeners as well. My family as well. We're all safe. So I feel incredibly fortunate to be in that position, and looking forward to things, hopefully, at some point in the not too distant future, returning to some level of normalcy. And you and yours?
We are also looking forward to that level of normalcy returning at some point. It's been surprisingly, I don't know if normal is the right word, but I work pretty much on my own. My wife is a lawyer who works more or less on her own. And so, in the overall scheme of things, it hasn't been all that disruptive for us personally, but so many people suffering and so many people having difficult financial times and everything else that I do hope it's over sooner rather than later.
Of course. I reinforce those sentiments completely.
So earlier this week, as we are recording this, Deloitte announced that it had launched a legal business services practice here in the United States, which it said in its announcement is a comprehensive suite of legal management consulting and technologically enabled legal managed services for corporate legal departments designed to accelerate the transformation of the business of law. I have to assume a PR person wrote that sentence. With all due respect, I hope you didn't write it. And also announced that you are a principal of this, although you've been with Deloitte, I guess, since January now, if I understand it. But I wonder if before we kind of get to this, if we could just talk about you a little bit. If you could just kind of tell us about your background and how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. Thank you again, Bob. So I feel, first of all, incredibly fortunate to be where I am today. I describe myself somewhat tongue-in-cheek as a recovering attorney, and I'm sure you've heard that strapline in the past. I qualified as a solicitor in the late 1990s in the UK, practiced law there for about 8 years, and I really had my own light bulb moment, Bob, in the last firm that I practiced at, where I was the head of the personal injury department for that firm. And that firm became the first UK law firm to offshore any legal managed services work overseas to a lower cost common law jurisdiction. And that was very much my light bulb moment. It was before any of the acronyms LPO, ALSP, LMS even existed, in the legal industry. But it really opened my eyes to the art of the possible.
That was Underwood's?
Yes, that was Underwood's. I had the good fortune of meeting and marrying a wonderful California girl, emigrating to the US in 2006. And to be entirely candid, I had every intention of taking the bar and practicing law over here in the US. And I remember to this day when I landed in the States in 2006, I had a number of job interviews set up with law firms with a view to joining them as a paralegal and then taking the bar. And I had one opportunity with what was then a startup legal process outsourcing company called Law Scribe. And I remember turning to my wife and saying, again, in all transparency, well, I've got 3 job offers that require me to sit and study for the California bar exam, and I have one job offer that doesn't. And I have to be candid and say, Bob, that was the strategic rationale behind that decision. And it was the most sensible decision I've ever made professionally in my life. I joined this legal process outsourcing company, had 3 wonderful years there before joining another player in that market, which was by that point in time being referred to as the alternative legal services provider market. I joined a company called Integrion in 2009, and I spent a decade there. The last 6 years of that time, I was the global head of one of their 3 business units, what they referred to as the 3 C's: contracts, compliance, and commercial services.
And so you moved to Deloitte earlier this year. Was that with an eye toward launching what was announced this week?
Well, very, very much so. I joined Deloitte at the end of January this year, and it really was, an acknowledgement from my perspective about the maturation and growth of the market opportunity for what we're referring to at Deloitte as legal business services. That market has become a multi-billion-dollar market today.
Mm-hmm.
It is poised to experience ongoing, significant, year-on-year growth. And while the boutique alternative legal services providers deserve a tremendous amount of credit for helping to create and develop that market, unquestionably the size and scale that Deloitte brings to the table, its diversity of experience, 175 years we're celebrating this year of business reputation and market leadership, technological advancement. It really it became clear to me that in order to respond to the ever-evolving and increasingly fast-paced evolution of the needs of the corporate legal department, that Deloitte was where my home was going to be.
So why did Deloitte want to get into this area of legal managed services, business services for legal departments? I mean, did Deloitte feel that there was a hole that needed to be filled, a gap that needed to be filled in the market?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I would comment. I make a prefatory comment, Bob, that Deloitte is not a newcomer to the alternative legal services space. It is already one of the world's largest providers of legal business services, with multiple delivery centers of excellence across the globe, in the US, in Detroit, in Austin, in New Jersey, multilingual delivery centers of excellence in Bucharest and Malaysia, and of course, state-of-the-art centers of excellence in Hyderabad, India. But within the launch of the legal business services practice, that there is a clear viewpoint within Deloitte that the legal profession today is one that is vastly different from the, how might I describe it, the artisanal profession of yesterday. And over the next 5 to 10 years, we are confident that we are going to see an increasingly fast-paced evolution in technological and operating model innovations, which are driving increasing transformation in both the delivery and consumption of legal services. And here's the crucial point: consumption of legal services at scale. Legal departments are contending with a multitude of interrelated and overlapping market forces. The volume of work continues to increase exponentially. There is an explosion in data. Organizations are sitting on unimaginable pools of data, but the challenge is finding it, collating it, ensuring that that data is structured as opposed to unstructured. Ever increasing changes in the regulatory environment and an increasingly interconnected global marketplace. What we're seeing is that in-house teams lack the bandwidth to keep pace with all of these changes. And, we hear all the time, Bob, that corporate legal departments are being asked to do more with less. Of course, I understand that. I do feel that that is a phrase that is being bandied about with such frequency that is in danger of becoming something of a cliche. Mm-hmm. But what we believe is that legal departments are being asked to go one step further. They're being asked to demonstrate value to the overall business, to morph from a cost center to a profit center. And we believe that has opened up an opportunity in this multi-billion-dollar marketplace, and Deloitte is here to fill that gap.
Well, a lot of things that you just said that I'd like to follow up on, but going back to how you just started your comments there on the fact that Deloitte is not new to the legal services business, and in fact is a global powerhouse really in legal services. It's something that I don't think a lot of lawyers in the United States realize. I think that's much more understood elsewhere in the world and other parts of the world. But I think a lot of lawyers in the United States get very nervous when they start thinking about the Big Four as providers of legal services. And of course, part of the reason for that here is that regulations prevent the Big Four from getting into providing legal advice directly, I guess, as they might in other jurisdictions. But what are the implications for this? I mean, I think a lot of lawyers might be, having their blood pressure go up as they listen to you talk, because they would see what you're doing as a threat to them. Is that a fair way to think about it?
No, I think it is, if anything, a tremendous opportunity for law firms. Keep in mind, Bob, that Deloitte does not practice law in the US, and we are not going to be competing with law firms for the provision of legal advisory services. Clients are always going to need their expert, trusted legal advisors. What we are going to be doing is expanding the definition of alternative legal services to encompass a much more comprehensive suite of legal business services. We'll be doing that by deconstructing legal matters into their constituent components, leveraging automation, process reengineering, and as you well know, legal managed services. As the legal ecosystem continues to morph, as it continues to evolve, we believe that there is an incredible opportunity for law firms to collaborate with organizations like Deloitte, whereby clients can then benefit from an end-to-end service where the whole is greater than the sum of its constituent parts. And we also believe that by collaborating with law firms, we can expand both the scale and the volume of opportunities available for both Deloitte and those law firms that we collaborate with.
So tell me what you think of, what you mean when you talk about legal managed services. How are you defining the offering? What is it that legal departments would work with you on?
Great question. So the legal business services practice is going to both incorporate, Bob, and build on, Deloitte's existing legal department offerings in the realms of legal management consulting and legal managed services. And some of those specific services, in no particular order of prioritization, include contract lifecycle management, legal entity management, regulatory consulting, knowledge management, data governance, legal invoice review and spend analytics, legal supplier and vendor sourcing, forensics, investigation support, and a comprehensive suite of legal management consulting offerings, including legal operations as a managed service.
And what part of the corporate sector are you targeting? Who's the right type of legal department to be taking advantage of your services?
It's a great question. We get asked that question a lot. What industry verticals are targets for Deloitte Legal Business Services and these particular types of services that I've just mentioned? Of course, large organizations operating globally in highly regulated environments, financial services, high tech, so technology, media, and telecoms, pharmaceutical and life sciences. But I also don't want to close the door by any stretch of the imagination to retail, fast-moving consumer goods. The key criteria is less about the industry vertical, and it's much more about the challenges that those organizations are facing. Do they have a large, varied, complex global supply chain or customer base? That obviously impacts the volume of contracts flowing through that organization on an annualized basis and may make that organization a tremendous fit for legal business services.
Does it have to do at all with the size of the legal department within the corporation?
Typically speaking, we are aiming legal business services at larger organizations, but concurrently, those organizations with smaller legal departments may well be able to benefit from the services that legal business services brings to them to allow them to achieve economies of scale that they would otherwise be unable to achieve.
We'll get back to my interview in just a moment, but first, let's take a break to hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. Now, let's get back to this week's interview. Mark, you've been doing this for a while, and I'm wondering how you see the managed services market having evolved, and where is it now in terms of the types of services that you're offering? I mean, I think this was initially perceived as largely managed services largely focused on more commoditized services, and in recent years seems to be moving a little bit more, up market. I'm not sure if that's the right word, or upskill level anyway. Where do you see it? How do you see it evolving?
Again, a great question. And, I think that it's almost impossible to answer that question, without acknowledging the accelerator that COVID-19 is playing in terms of digital transformation, of the legal department, because that in and of itself, is going to further accelerate the pace of technological and operating model innovation, which, as I said earlier, is driving transformation in both the delivery and consumption of legal services. Digital transformation from our perspective, Bob, it's more than just about technology and innovation. It's also identifying the opportunities to address both human and business needs by applying innovation, design thinking, digital technologies to both new and existing business models. We believe that the legal department of tomorrow is going to look different for every organization, but we believe that through a comprehensive suite of legal managed services and legal management consulting offerings, that we're going to be able to help organizations make more informed, data-driven decision making, have real-time information visibility, optimize their internal workforce, enhance their distribution and triage of work, which of course may well include leveraging alternative delivery models. I'd be very happy to do a little bit of a deep dive under the hood into contract lifecycle management and the contracting function in particular, Bob. To sort of illustrate that point, if you'd like me to.
Feel free. That would be great.
So, if you look at the contracting function within a corporate legal department, it really is, in our opinion, representative of a microcosm of the challenges more broadly faced by corporate legal departments. And frankly, it's one that our clients frequently cite as their top priority for transformation.
Right.
If you think about the nature of global business, organizations are operating under an increasingly complex 24/7 global economy. So what does that mean for the organizations and the contracting function? They need to have a faster, a more efficient, a more insightful contracting process. But that's not where they are today. We've got inefficiencies in process, inefficiencies in resource allocation, underutilized technologies. I read a study from the Blickstein Group on law department operations earlier this year, which commented that even though a significant majority of organizations do have, for example, contract lifecycle management technology, most of those organizations feel that that technology is underutilized or inefficiently utilized. The problem then becomes one of the legal department also operating in a siloed manner, disconnected from procurement, disconnected from sales, disconnected from the overall organization, and operating at a suboptimal level. So what does that mean again for the organization, Bob? It means delays in the procurement of needed goods and services, potential revenue leakage, inefficient contractual obligations management, and a lack of insight, Bob, into contractual risk across the organization. And that comes, as I mentioned, despite year on year ever increasing investment into the contract lifecycle management technology space, which again, I always am at pains to say isn't of itself a magic wand to cure all of the ills.
Right.
So if we can help organizations transform that contracting function by leveraging multidisciplinary approach and talent, automation, global delivery, alternative resource models, continuous improvement, ensuring that the right resources touch the right contracts at the right time, we will improve speed to execution, will help free up the in-house attorneys to work on more strategic matters with intelligent contract triage. And what is often lost on others is we're going to be able to help organizations think beyond the four corners of the contract, be able to link contractual data to data in finance, in ERP, in CRM systems, so that you can monitor and realize contractual performance, ensure that discounts, other milestones are met, financial incentives are realized. And that overall, the end game The end game is reduction in the overall cost per contract, enhanced relationships with those in the contracting function with their internal clients, and frankly, overall, an elevated view of the legal department and the contracting function as a whole. That's what we're looking to bring to the table.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the fact that we're in the middle of the COVID-19 era here, and the risk of perhaps dormant in some of those contracts right now could potentially be enormous for some of these companies.
Of course, I could not agree more. As I mentioned earlier, organizations are sitting on a huge pool of data, including data contained within their contracts. The challenge is that most organizations still to this day do not have that data organized in a structured manner. Right. They're not able to glean and garner intelligent insights from that data. And what COVID has done, specifically as it relates to contracts, it's caused a tsunami, a tidal wave of questions that need to be answered about an organization's supply chain, about an organization's customer base. Organizations need to know, they need to have the information at their fingertips to understand the existence of force majeure clauses, the notice periods for notification of the exercise of those clauses, with counterparties, with customers, with suppliers, other opportunities within those contracts to terminate, termination for convenience, termination for cause. All of that information in many, many organizations exists, but it exists in an unstructured format. And if we can help those organizations not only identify those metadata points, identify that information, but also answer those questions. Answer those questions about the contracts. Link the information about what organizations have contracted for with information in their CRM systems, information in their financial systems. Then we'll be able to help organizations, as we say at Deloitte, respond, recover, and thrive going forward.
There are, of course, other companies in the legal tech market that are targeting exactly that problem and attempting to, bring structure to the unstructured data of a company's contracts through technology platforms that they're developing. How would Deloitte tackle that project? I mean, do you have technology, or do you develop technology, or is it something more than that?
Yes and yes, Bob. So we've got multiple proprietary technologies, but also extensive experience across some of the best of breed third-party platforms in the marketplace today. The expertise and knowledge that we bring to the table in artificial intelligence, in robotics process automation, in matter management, in contract lifecycle management technology specifically, puts us in an incredible position to strategically guide our clients. But yes, of course, we have proprietary technologies, including DTRAX, which recently won the Intelligent Contracting category at the 2019 Financial Times Intelligent Business Awards. But again, alliances with other top technology vendors in the marketplace. The way that we approach technology is we look at it quite simply through the lens of what is the best fit for our clients. And that takes into account their functionality requirements, their budget, and also their tolerance for change management.
And so that's not a one-size-fits-all answer, I assume.
100% correct. It is not a one-size-fits-all.
Yep. So as I said earlier, as we're recording this, it is the middle of July, and we are still very much in the middle of, or somewhere along the line in the course of the coronavirus crisis, the pandemic. Does where we are at all affect? Did it at all play into the timing of your launch of this business?
No, legal business services, while it is, a new practice in the US, as I mentioned, we've been providing these services for many, many years across the globe. What we think COVID-19 will do, frankly, is act as a catalyst for change.
Right.
It's unquestionable that global corporations are going to be increasingly embracing digitization and innovative delivery models. They're thinking today, they've had their hand forced in many, many ways with the work from home rigor that most organizations across the globe are deploying. Digital transformation efforts are being accelerated, but this is still under the specter of, again, and I'm using that cliche again, needing to do more with less.
Right.
And they just don't have the bandwidth to keep up. So that's where we can help those organizations drive towards a reimagined approach to their legal operations.
Yeah. I know that Deloitte in May announced that it had hired Emily Fogis, who was previously the chief executive officer of Luminance, AI contract due diligence platform, to head up managed legal services business there in the UK. How does the US operation, if we can call it that, fit in with the larger international business of Deloitte?
Very simply, as far as our clients are concerned, the US legal business services, legal management consulting, and legal managed services leadership team will be working incredibly closely and collaboratively, with Michael Castle, Emily Fogis, Sonia Williamson, to ensure that our clients receive a seamless, global, multidisciplinary solution.
Mark, I know that over the years you've written and spoken about some of the legal ethics issues around legal outsourcing. I wonder if you've at all been following the more recent developments regarding regulatory reform efforts, if you agree that they might be reform. Some people call them reform, some people call them deform, but the efforts to rethink how the practice of law is regulated in the United States, and in particular, who can practice law and who can invest in law practices. If you've been following that at all, and what you think the implications might be, if you have been, for firms such as Deloitte.
Well, of course, I follow all regulatory developments, that impact the legal industry. But what I would say is that, clearly Deloitte is not practicing law in any US jurisdiction. We don't have any plans to practice law in any US jurisdiction, nor are we lobbying any of the states to allow us to practice law in any jurisdiction. But throughout our 175-year history, we've served our clients in highly regulated environments, and we operate under the constructs and guardrails of the regulatory environments as they exist.
Right.
And, while the developments within different state bars at a personal level, are interesting, again, we have no plans to expand into the practice of law, and nor are we lobbying any of the states to change their regulations to allow us to practice law.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, certainly that is the speculation among some who, some who've opposed these regulatory changes, is that it would open the door for firms such as the Big Four and other kinds of professional services firm to move into the practice of law. And I understand that you are in a highly regulated industry and must adhere very closely and tightly to regulatory constraints that govern you. I've been asking you a whole bunch of questions, but what else is it that you would like people to know about this new business and about what you're offering here in the United States?
Well, first of all, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I think the only thing that we really haven't, touched on, is, our mission. The mission is to become the undisputed market leader, in legal business services. And in order to do that, Bob, we are going to continue to strategically invest, in top-tier talent from the world of chief legal officers, legal operations, alternative legal services providers, legal industry eminence, legal technology, but also I want to stress talent from beyond the four corners of the legal profession. Technologists, process analysts, project management consultants, data scientists, risk managers, knowledge engineers. This is one of the key reasons, why I joined Deloitte, is the access to that talent and the investment appetites to add talent along those lines.
So is that the why? I mean, there are any number of companies out there offering legal managed services now, and various shapes, sizes, and forms. And I'm sure for many within corporate legal departments, there is, a little bit of market confusion in their minds as to, if they're thinking about going down this road at all, or even if they're already using a managed services firm, as to which one is the right fit for them, and why is that the right fit for them? I mean, what is it about Deloitte that makes it stand out from the pack?
It's a great question, and I don't want to duplicate what I've already said.
And you've spoken to this already to some extent, but what's the elevator pitch?
Let me focus for a moment on the expertise that Deloitte can bring to the table from across its multidisciplinary practice. I mentioned a whole slew of job titles, job descriptions, knowledge engineers, data scientists, etc. Deloitte as a global organization, is a visionary, for example, in the field of information technology. Gartner, in its study earlier this year, named Deloitte as a leader in its Magic Quadrant for data analytics services providers. Boutique alternative legal services providers, traditional law firms, and frankly, almost any other organization cannot compare with that level of expertise in the field of data and data analytics. And, as we talked about earlier, as organizations are increasingly embarking on this path towards digitization, being able to leverage that unrivaled capability in knowledge management, data, analytics, digitization across a multidisciplinary platform truly sets us apart from the competition.
Well, Mark, I really appreciate your taking the time to speak with us today. It's been a real pleasure to get to hear more about what you're doing and to get a chance to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate the time. Again, for everybody listening, please be well, stay safe, and I hope you and yours are well and safe as well, Bob.
Thank you, and same to you. And we will continue to follow the development and evolution of this. We've been speaking with Mark Ross, who's principal of Deloitte's newly launched legal business services practice in the United States. That's it for this week's show. Thanks, as always, to Populous Radio for producing and editing the show. That's it for this week. This is Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for listening.